in the login script instead of the home folder. So everybody gets a U drive to their own user folder. So they don't see a user share with all the users in them. They just go straight to theirs.
Right.
So I did that, and also under the small business server, there's document or folder redirection to redirect like my documents to the server. I canceled that and just said redirect back to the local drive if that's where they were. Because remember, the small business server is eventually going to go away. I don't want this small business server doing any remapping because I want to know if it's not going to work. I want to know if my documents won't work. I want to know if they can't access shares. And we did get a few calls Monday and fixed all those problems. So that part was all done. So the next part
was I'm sorry, was one of the problems folks not getting their map drives?
No, everybody got a map drive fine.
Okay. What I wanted to share real quick, a lot of times you'll see that when you migrate a server that some manually mapped drives don't work if you use manually mapped drives in your environment. If you type in net space use, like on the screen that you're seeing now, I have an H and an N drive that points to my NAS, the device, but you see a P drive. It'll say unavailable. That IP address is no longer valid in my network, or you might have a host name in your instance, but that's a quick way to tell that they had a manually mapped drive to a server that is not there anymore. That's one of the steps that we use when we decommission a server and bring a new one up. You'll find a lot of people have manually mapped drives to servers out there.
Yeah, and that's why I unshared everything. So the only thing shared on the main server was the user folder and the client app share. So anything else, if they had a manual map drive, yeah, they would have gotten an error.
Right.
I was actually expecting a lot of calls on Monday morning, but I didn't get but a couple. And they were small issues, like the archive PSD file had a full path instead of the drive letter. One person had my documents routed to the old server. I mean, it was only a handful. For 70 users, I thought I'd have a lot more calls. And actually, Monday morning when I didn't get calls, I thought, okay, either their email is down or there's no problems because they might be emailing me.
Or everybody had Monday off.
So I connected to their server, tried Outlook, and made sure I could send and receive it. The email's working. Queues aren't backed up, so no, if they want to email me, they could, but they didn't. So I'm going to take that as a good thing.
You know, it's funny that you're bringing it up. When I was in charge of projects, and you know, we were upgrading a system or something, that the Monday was always kind of nerve-wracking. And to me, I was expected, like you stated, a bunch of phone calls or something to possibly not go right. But then when I would have no phone calls, I would double check the system, or people logged on or not. You know, is my phone working?
Yeah, call yourself from the cell phone.
Yeah.
Nothing's working. Yeah, I was worried because I thought, man, for sure I was going to get some calls, but yeah, no calls.
Cool.
So the file server was done. I did have to. We had a few. We had a lot of printers to redo. I put those in the file server, installed those, shared those. Now I didn't kill the printers yet on the main server. I'm gonna probably do that tomorrow and see what happens. I'm sure that I'll get some calls from that, but they have so many printers in this company. There's probably 30, at least 30 printers. Network printers. That's not talking about anybody has local printer. That's network printers. So we'll see. Most of them are those OfficeJet all-in-one things.
Yeah.
So I don't even install those in the server. I have a reservation for it, so I know it exists, but I don't install that software in the server. So they just install the software and print to it over as an IP printer. But a few of them I had to share, just some LaserJet 4s and smaller ones. So
now, do you actually install those printers via login script, or do you have like a web page that they can go to and just click on the printer where it connects them?
Well, a small business server, when you join it to the domain using the Connect wizard, it installs the printers for you, all available printers.
Oh, okay. So all 30, so a client would get all 30?
If they have access to all 30, they get all 30.
Okay.
But no, I'm sorry. It installs the printers that are shared on the server or listed or shared somewhere and listed in the directory.
Whatever number that may be.
Right. So if there's an IP printer on the network that just has an IP address and you got to install that 300 megabyte software, that won't get installed automatically because that's not shared anywhere.
Right.
But yeah, any shared printer on the network, even if it's shared from Mary's computer, if it's shared and they have access to it, it'll install.
And that's why Matt will probably tell you, along with many other people, if you're in an environment with many printers, make sure you choose a good naming convention that you put in a description. Because if you don't, the people are going to be printing to the printers all over the network, not knowing where they are.
Yeah. And when I do a reservation for them in there, I also put the location in there to know what it's for.
And what I would also do is use a label maker with the largest font that I could print out and put the same. I would put it on a label and put it on the printer so it matched up the queue name in the printer.
Yeah, that's nice too because they move the printers around and I might they don't tell me if they move a printer.
Right.
So the reservation lease that I have may say Office Jet 8500 Building A hallway, and then next thing I know it's in Building E.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those things can change from time to time. Okay, so after the file server, print server, all that's done, the application server, all that stuff was moved. Some of it easy, some of it not easy. A lot of phone calls to the vendors to find out the process to move this stuff. At this point, when I started this checklist, everything's moved over as far as shares, printers, programs, all that stuff's moved over already. So this is the last step of the whole migration is this link that I'm talking about. So the next thing I did was you have to join the server 2008 server to the domain as a member server, meaning it's just like joining any workstation to the domain. You're just going to join it to the domain as a member server. So it's part of the domain. It's not really doing anything. It's just part of the domain right now. You just, domain name, whatever it is. Here's my admin password, reboot. Okay, now I'm on the domain. It's a member server.
It's almost like part of the family now.
Yes, it's part of the Happy Active Directory family. So now of course I gave this thing a static IP address. All servers need to have static IP addresses. Before I joined it, static IP, all that stuff. Next thing you're going to do is you have to prepare the Active Directory for Windows 2008 R2 server. So what that means is SBS 2003 server, of course, doesn't know anything about server 2008 because, of course, server 2008 wasn't around when server 2003 came out. So there are differences in the Active Directory schema and this and that in the past 5 years. So you've got to make the 2003 server aware of these changes and be ready to even accept a 2008 server as a domain controller on the network. So there's a few things you have to do. On this 2003 server, you have to just raise what's called the functional level. What that means is it's just saying, I'm not going to support old servers anymore, only 03 and later. Because by default, it's going to be in a mixed mode, I think it's called.
Yes.
So it can also have like Windows 2000 servers as domain controllers. But you can't have, if you're going to go to this 2008 migration, you can't have those old servers anymore. Those have to be off the network. But if you're in a small business server, you probably only have one server anyway. So you're going to go on the 03 server. You are going to go to Start, Administrative Tools, Active Directory, Users, and Computers. And this is all in the link, tinyurl.com/pnp41. And in there, you're going to right-click on the domain name and just select Raise Domain Functional Level. In the drop-down box, you're going to select Windows Server 2003 because that's basically saying only 03 and later. and then that's it. It's just a click. It's just a checkbox or just that drop-down menu. Then you're going to raise the forest functional level, doing something similar, but you're going to go into Active Directory domains and trusts, and raise forest functional level. Those things don't need any reboots. They're just going to have to click them, just to say no more old servers.
I keep in mind that you have to make sure there's no old 2000 NT4 servers in your environment. And once you do this, you can't go back. It's a one-way street.
Yeah, I hope there's no NT servers.
I see it. Ooh.
Yeah.
That's yours? Okay.
What's that?
No, like then they walk you through like a closet with a server with no cover, just the 3 lights, and you go, "Ooh, that's yours."
Mm-hmm.
Is that your PDC or?
Yeah, right. Which still exists, or at least the emulator does.
Yeah.
Okay, so you also have to raise the Exchange operational mode too. So you go into System Manager for Exchange. You're going to right-click on the organization at the top of the list and select Properties. In the dialog box, check the operational mode. If it says mixed mode, click the change mode button and say yes to the dialog asking you to change to native mode. So, domain functional level, forest functional level, exchange operational mode. Those things need to be raised. And that's not a big deal if the only server you have is the SBS 03 server. Now, the next part, you're going to need to stick the 2008 server DVD into the small business server. You can cancel the auto run message, and you're going to open a command prompt. And what we're going to do here is you're going to run some commands to prepare Active Directory. Now, this changes Active Directory to be aware of the schema changes necessary for 08 server. Before I did this, I ran a backup of the system state. And we had a good backup the night before, which backs up the whole server. But just prior to this, I backed up the system state. This makes changes that cannot be undone either.
Yep, good call.
Once they're done, they're done.
And what Matt's saying when he's saying change the schema, it's kind of hard to, I don't know what the easiest way to explain, but it's preparing the server to be introduced fully and to be compatible with the 2008 environment. Would you agree with that statement in a way?
Right. I mean, the schema is going to be things like the user properties, all those, all the attributes. So there are things behind the scenes that you can only see if you went into the tools to edit Active Directory directly. Which
can be very intimidating if you ever went. I mean, a lot of times the vendor, the Microsoft, it will do it for you.
Right.
You can't do it manually. I just don't advise it.
Yeah, no, right. Unless you have some clear documentation on what you're doing. So I backed up system state. I also had the users get out just to make sure I didn't want people accessing the server. I wanted to do as little bit as possible while I was doing this, so I did it during lunch. I told them to get out.
I know what you mean when you say get out to log out, but I imagine you clearing the whole building.
Everybody out. Pull the fire alarm. But log off before you leave. So I backed up the system state. I also killed the antivirus on the server. And it doesn't say to do that on the list, but I don't really want antivirus running when I'm trying to do something on a server like this. So I killed the client. I killed all the Trend Micro's antivirus services just to make sure no antivirus is running on here. So once the DVD is in the drive and you've cleared the auto run stuff, go to command prompt, and there's a couple of commands you have to type, and they're in this article. But basically the first one is what I want to make a note on. You're going to go, let's say your CD-ROM drive is D, so you type in d:/support/adprep/adprep32 /forest prep. Now, this is the one that takes the longest. It runs, and it's a little deceiving because it'll run for a little while, maybe 5 minutes. Of course, it's going to vary. And then it comes back and says all commands completed successfully. So you think it's done. This is what it seems to me, right?
Right.
It's not done.